Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Town of Southbridge Special Town Council meeting here in McKinnon Council Chambers on Wednesday, January 5th, 2022 at 7:04 p.m. First agenda item is call to order. Second agenda item is roll call.
Councillor Adams?
Present.
Councillor Catrona?
Excused.
Councillor Daniel?
Present.
Councillor Dow? Councillor Jovan?
Present.
Councillor Lazo?
Excused.
Councillor Marquetti?
Present.
Councillor Ryan?
Excused.
And Councillor Steves.
Present. Very good. Let's all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Agenda item number 4, vote to ratify the contract between Ty and Bond and the Town of Southbridge for environmental services assessment on the properties at the location of the new fire station in the amount of $8,100 as recommended by the Fire Station Building Committee, and authorize the town manager to sign all related documents.
So moved. Second.
Councilor Jovan.
Thank you. As you're aware, the Fire Station Building Committee has gone out for a variety of services. We talked about this at the last council meeting. This is for the environmental services assessment. The town manager, I'll defer to him on the conversation about the request for proposals as well as the awarding of this contract. It's been vetted by the Fire Station Building Committee, and my recommendation to go with the recommendation of the town manager and our owner's project manager, Pomeroy Associates. So I'll defer to the town manager. Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
Yes, good evening. As you know, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, as part of our due diligence going forward with the fire station building project, we sought the services as required by owner's project manager. Concurrent with that, I put together the the documents to go out and procure an appraisal and environmental services. We went out and we requested proposals from various engineering firms that we've done business. We sent over a half dozen, and after a review of the responses and the OPM's review of them, we have come forward with the recommendation for Ty and Bond. There was a revised number on this proposal, and the contract associated with it is one that we've consistently used for services, and it's a not to exceed amount as we are looking at the 3 necessary properties, but we're also doing, as was previously mentioned in other meetings, we're just looking at the other contiguous properties in the event we could reach an agreement if the town so chooses to have that entire section of the community. So while they're out there, the thought process, we would have them take a look there as well.
Very good. Councilors. Councilor Marquetti, then Councilor Steves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, the last month when we talked about this, there were 2 proposals, 2 bids. One was from Ty and Bond. For phase 1 would be $5,700, and the other one from VHB for phase 1, task 1, $16,000. So I was just wondering, at the time, the project managers recommended VHB, so I was wondering what happened, why now you're coming back with just Ty and Bond. So that was my first question, of what made the change?
So it's my understanding, if I may, Mr. Chairman, through you to Councilor Marquetti, when I spoke to the owner's project manager about this, based on their experience, they felt that there may have been some issues with the bid, that they were, neither was in line with what they anticipated for the nature of the work. One may have been too low, one may have been too high. So he said he was going to reach out to the bidders to determine, to get a better number from the 2 of them, and following his communication, he came back and said that this would be the appropriate one at that amount. So that's where that came back from.
Thank you. If I can continue. And the other question I have is, how are we paying for this? Because I know at the last meeting, you stated that we haven't borrowed for any of this yet, so.
Correct.
My question would be how we were going to pay for this.
Correct. To date, I actually asked that question of the OPM earlier this evening. They are putting together a list of monies to date. It's my understanding we haven't been invoiced for anything, but they're going to give us a number based on once these, these preliminary contracts are approved, they're going to come back with their fee, the architect's fee, and I believe the architect's fee will be coming up on the agenda, perhaps the next meeting or the 24th, because they're making a recommendation, the subcommittee on that. Once we have the preliminary numbers, we'll present them to the treasurer's office for bonding. So it's my understanding that the work to date has been done. They're just accumulating the amounts till they give it to us, because we've asked for the cash flow statement. And if I believe Councilor Jovan would concur with that, was the assessment this evening, is that they will be giving us a number to date of what they've accumulated for charges, but they haven't billed us yet.
Correct.
Mr.
Counselor?
Yeah, thank you, sorry. Yeah, through you to Councilor Marquetti, that is correct. The conversation this evening was, we did due diligence on the review of the, we had our meeting earlier this evening, and we reviewed the architect's proposal on phase 2, which was part of the designer selection phase and all that. And we reviewed the number for that. So I think, like the town manager said, by the second meeting in January, we should have an idea of what's been approved so far, and then we'll work with the accountant to get the account set up so that they can bond however they would seem appropriate at this point. All we would be billing out would be the whatever appraisal fees, the environmental fees, whatever we're billed up to on the owner's project manager, because obviously that's going to be a couple-year process as well. And then also on our designer selection number, we have that number was reviewed this evening. So we would have those numbers available, and as soon as, like the town manager alluded to, they are working on that cash flow statement, so they'll be able to put different benchmark timelines in of what target dates everything would be due. So I don't anticipate, at this point, between architect, owner's project manager, and these environmental, we're roughly below the 3 million mark total that would have to be borrowed, and the big chunk would be when we go out to bid. So that's why the development of that benchmark schedule, cash flow schedule, is important. So I think we'll have a better sense in January as to how we'll lay out those payments.
All right, thank you, I'm all set.
Very good, thank you. Councilor Steves?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a quick question. One of the first things that the report mentions is the fact that there was an incident was closed out with a permanent solution in 2004, and I was wondering if anybody can explain what exactly happened, what they actually did down there, because I don't want to see us repeat the same situation we had with the highway barn, where we have massive contamination, and we only discovered after we bought the property and started building a project on it.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may answer.
I don't know.
Certainly.
Through you, that's the exact reason why we do the environmental assessment. That's why we're hiring this firm, to make sure that they review whatever the 21E that's on file, because there is a valid 21E that's been found for that work. We want to verify that whatever was there has been taken care of and remediated, so that you don't run into the situation that we had at the highway DPW barn. So that's the reason for. So we do know that something occurred there.
Okay.
We do know that there's a 21E that was filed saying it was remediated. That's the purpose of the environmental assessment, is to verify that information.
Okay.
You know, it's the trust but verify.
Right.
So we're in the verification form, that we wouldn't want to assume anything that was there. We're not going to assume that just because something's on file that says it was done. We want to know what was done,
Right.
so that there's no. So that's the reason for this assessment.
So following that up then, do you expect that we will probably end up having to go to phase 2? The actual testing that to phase 2 usually calls for?
I would defer to the town manager on that, because I think he had his hand up.
Mr. Manager?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just to go back a little bit, one of the first things I learned about when I took the position about a year and a half ago was the situation up in Gulfwood Road, because I still get updates about that. So when we had the discussions about the land acquisition, it was discussed right up front. Chairman, subcommittee, or Fire Station Building Committee Chairman Jovan and I talked about ensuring that when we did the appraisals, we also ensured that we weren't getting another situation similar to what you had on Gulfwood Road.
Right.
We did look at all those properties. We did see that there was a filing there. The Phase 1 would tell you whether or not you need to do a Phase 2. If they get enough indicia that there's a problem, they'll go forward. They will review the previous findings. They'll do some level of testing in the Phase 1. The Phase 2 is the more in-depth, typically where they do borings.
Right.
But I think in this case, we may be doing, there's been discussion that we will be doing some level of testing out there. I don't know if that'll cross the threshold, but we may at some point also be doing testing just to see what's underneath, because you have to do that when you do construction to determine if there's ledge. So I anticipate that we will, based on the Phase 1, we'll do whatever is necessary, because we don't want a problem, nor do we want to have any issues with any of the contiguous properties. So when we did the bid, we included all those properties because you never know in what direction groundwater flows.
Right.
So we just want to make sure if there was a problem, and it is my understanding, after looking at the DEP website and talking to the current property owner, that situation was addressed prior to the time he acquired the property. So we're hopeful that there isn't anything, but again, this is really just to ensure that we don't inherit a problem.
Right. And do we have any indications that some of the other properties may have issues?
Not that I'm aware of, because that was the only site that popped up at the time when I was looking. But again, we'll have them do the Phase 1 where they do some basic observations and testing, just to ensure that there isn't anything there. And again, any of that information would be factored in with an appraisal, because if you have something valued for X and there's a problem on it, that could factor into the cost or
Right.
the purchase price.
Absolutely. Well, I was figuring that some of those houses, as they mentioned, that they're dating back to circa 1900 plus or minus, and almost all older houses will have asbestos and lead in them at least. So,
Yep, they will be looking at that as well, because I guess there are certain disposal costs, so that would come in and factor in again to any prices.
thank you.
Very good. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Dow? Yes. Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
And Counselor Steves?
Yes.
We have 6 yes votes. The motion passes. I'd like to entertain a motion to pass this over, to table this with no further action at this time.
Make a motion to take no action at this time on agenda item 5.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to know what's going on with this. This has been going on. We keep pushing this certain property off. It's been over a year now. And I know that looking at the original contract, this was signed over a year ago, and we've lost out on a lot of revenue because it has not been going on. And as far as I can tell, just looking at the contract, I don't see any time limit on it. So how long is this going to keep going on? Are they going to be able to sit on this for years and years and years? I noticed that the payments don't start until they start operating, but they haven't operated for over a year. So, and then they have 5 years. Does that start from the day they signed, the original Mellow Tiger signed the contract? Or does it start now anew? I don't know. I just would like to, I know you want to pass over it, but this is going on for a long time now. This one and the other one, there's another one on Main Street. And, this is why we passed the marijuana bylaw, to get revenue from this. So I'd like to know what's going on with it. If we could, I'd appreciate it.
Very good. Mr. Manager.
Because there are some private business dealings, I won't get into it too deeply, but I will try and address Mr. Marchetti's concerns at a high level. I too am been concerned about ensuring that we are getting the revenue that was promised, because as you recall, shortly after I started here, we started the pavement management project, and I did a presentation based on the representations made to me by the various holders of the host community agreements. And from time to time, I check in and monitor the progress of those various establishments. One has been up and running for a considerable amount of time. A second one did come up late last fall, is up and operational, fully operational. Third one, I think, had some setbacks during COVID, but they have been going forward with getting their licenses with the CCC. And the last one that is here has had some challenges as well. And I've been repeatedly trying to get some idea of when they would be starting up. Because of the business climate, COVID, a variety of factors have impacted all businesses, as we know in this town. And I think without getting into specifics, they're trying to come together with resources and management to ensure that they go forward. And to your point earlier, in the contract that was signed at the time, and they predated me, there were no essentially performance or milestone requirements to ensure that people were moving along to apply to the CCC and get their business up and running. And if they go forward and there's a change in management, we believe that it has to come back before the council, and it is our opinion that we should have some of those in there. And the interesting part is until somebody presents something to us, it's not really our purview to vote. So it's still Mellow Tiger. There may be some people interested in helping them, and they would be, getting involved in the business. But until they come to us and let us know where they are, there's nothing for us to vote on. I guess that's the easiest way to explain it. But it is still the town's position if there's a transfer of the business or a substantial change of ownership that we think that it has to come from the council for approval. And our primary concern is that there is movement going forward. And that's what I've been working with our town council in the conversations we've had to ensure that we do go forward, because we've emphasized that the town did vote to approve retail marijuana, and really for the sole purpose of providing revenue to help with the infrastructure projects for the people of Southbridge.
All right, thank you.
Very good. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes 6-0. Unanimous of all present. Agenda item number 6, discuss COVID-19 update and take any action thereof. Mr. Manager.
Yes, good evening. Again, thank you, Chairman Daniels, as well as members of the council. With regard to a COVID update this evening, what I can tell you, as you know, the numbers have been spiking within the community. We meet as we do every other week. We have a team that is assembled. It consists of the various department heads, police, fire, DPW, the community center. We have representatives from Harrington Hospital, some of their staff, and we've had some counselors that have participated as well. And we've been monitoring the trends. Mr. Pelletier gives us an update, and this most recent set of updates, and I should say for the last couple, you could see the increase in the positivity rates and the number of cases going on. And I just wanted to go back to my notes. I think Mr. Pelletier said that on Friday he had a report of 75 cases in town, and then over the weekend, over 20 each of those days. And his 14-day count as of Monday, they had 300 recent cases. And the positivity rate at that point had been 14%, which was well in excess of 2 times what was at the state rate. He continued to let us know that 62% of the residents are vaccinated, but we're seeing this increase impact us in many different ways. As some of you know through my emails, it's affected my own family. A lot of people have been impacted. I don't want to give away, for privacy reasons, but it's impacted a fair amount of departments and things. For us, it's really about maintaining minimum staffing and ensuring the health and safety of our employees here at Town Hall. So on Sunday, I spoke with Chairman Daniel, I spoke with Mr. Pelletier, and we arranged to have employees tested before they came in Monday. We didn't have any issues. And, I know some staff had appreciated the fact that we were doing that. As I said, I've talked with Dr. Villar, I talked with him again today. The school, he's going to endeavor to maintain, the school continues as usual. There's a sentiment that this spike that we're seeing may be short-lived, that it, may come to a threshold and then start to trail off. So looking at how we've managed this week so far and how some of our neighboring communities have, it is my plan, in working conjunction with Dr. Villar, to keep the doors open to the public and to ask people to remain vigilant when they come in, to wear their masks, be patient, be social distance. I encourage anybody to get vaccinated or get a booster, because the numbers that are coming back from the Harrington staff say that first of all, they're seeing an unprecedented number of inpatients. They don't have any more beds. They said that they were at 150+% capacity over there, but 70 to 80% of all the people that they're taking in are not vaccinated. So the most severe cases are the people that aren't vaccinated. And in my case, I can tell you 2 of the people in my family that did get it were already vaccinated. They weren't boosted. They didn't have their booster shots, but the people that are having the most serious cases are the ones who have yet to get vaccinated. So the plan here is to continue to monitor at Town Hall. I've talked to the department heads on the meetings, and then through email, should there be a change in circumstances, should any one department or the Town Hall be impacted where we can't maintain a minimum level of services such that it interferes with our day-to-day operations, we would revisit whether or not we have to close the doors to the public. But for the moment, we'll remain open. And when I say minimum level of services, in the situation with the police and fire, they tend to have a little depth amongst their ranks. They may be able to call some people in to help out in another shift on overtime. But you take any one of our offices downstairs, treasurer's office, accounting office, we often have 2, maybe 3 people in the various offices. If we lose 66% or 100% of those people, we can't provide a service. Or even if we just have one person, they may have a hard time splitting the counter duties and trying to answer the phones and administer taxes and take payments. So we will continue to monitor it, as I said, but right now I appreciate the yeoman's work that our staff has been doing throughout COVID. They've been dealing well, and the folks that are coming in, we haven't had any issues that I'm aware of. Everybody's been patient and cooperative in wearing their masks, and I appreciate that the public has been doing that. One thing that did come up in some discussions individually with some staff, as well as it may have come up with a counselor, is that to minimize exposure to the public, as well as maybe even the folks on the council, whether or not we would consider, or I would submit to you, Council Chairman, whether if we have a need for a subcommittee and there may only be one item on a particular agenda, would it be worthwhile to consider just passing those to a full council meeting rather than have individual meetings for 1 or 2 items during this time period where the virus is such that it's easily transmissible, and we would want to avoid any unnecessary exposure to people. And one last caveat I would just add there is that to date, speaking to Dr. Villar as well as Mr. Pelletier, any cases of COVID that we've experienced have not been through transmission in the public facilities. Most people have contracted the virus outside and have remained outside. We're not aware that anybody has come in and passed it on to a coworker or anything. But this suggestion comes up just as another measure, a precautionary measure out of abundance of caution, to consider if there's only one item, maybe instead of having several members of the public, the council, and staff come in, we consider just passing that up. So my only thoughts. Thank you.
Very good. Councilors? Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I've said at the last meeting, I don't have any problem meeting here, and I don't have any problem if we go semi-remote or full remote. I think a lot of department heads who are required to attend these meetings would appreciate some sort of hybrid meeting. If some people are getting it outside the town hall, then they're bringing it in here. That's not a good idea either. So I'm okay with however we want to do it. I don't have a problem with remote, hybrid, or coming here. I do think subcommittee meetings, we should allow remote participation, but that's how I feel about it. Thank you.
Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Councilor Marquetti. That's something that we brought up last time, was about subcommittee meetings, but the motion on the table ended up being town council included, and which I was against at the time because of the ability to spread out and wear a mask within there. I mean, I have no problem if the town council were to bring this agenda up for those from the last vote for the subcommittee, but at this point in time, I mean, I'll leave it up to the town council, but I do agree with at least the subcommittees because of the close quarters that we're at usually. Thank you.
Councilor Staves?
Just agreement of both situations, actually. I mean, I remember I originally was one of the ones who supported the idea of going to full remote originally, and I have no problem with doing it either way. You know, I mean, it would be, I mean, it's not something I'm not too concerned about it either way either. I think it would make more sense for everybody else who has to come in and, you know, would take the podium and whatnot. It probably would be a lot easier for a lot of people to do it remotely. It'd probably be easier for us to do it remotely, although I do agree with what Scott had said at the last meeting about the fact that I think we generally do business better in person, and I think it is generally a better system to do it that way. It's also more responsive to the public, I think, but given the circumstances, I have no problem with going remote.
Councilor Jovan?
Yeah, thank you. I know my hesitation was that if we're going to do it, we don't do the hybrid because it is too cumbersome. That's so, whether remote. I have no problem. I had a fire station building committee meeting this evening, which I changed to full remote just because of COVID, you know, and I think my philosophy would be that anything that we can do as a council to mitigate the number of people that are in a small confined room, we should be doing. Or weighing what things have to take action at a subcommittee meeting as opposed to just going to full council. Some of the smaller minor items, like a grant approval that I had an EHS subcommittee agenda that Mr. Pelletier has, that we've already allowed him to go out for the grant. The grant was received. That one item, I said, let's just bring it to council and limit the number of times that we have to expose people to small quarters. So some kind of consideration like that where the full council, I agree that the full council should be able to meet in this room. This room is big enough, we're able to spread out, it's worked well, we don't get a lot of people, there's no real hot ticket items that are coming up on the horizon, that I don't think, that are gonna fill the hall. So as much business as we can do as an entire group, we should try to do. And I would have no problem doing having subcommittee on a remote. If the real reason that the person is not attending is because of this issue and not because they're in a different state, you know, that they can't make it because they're out of state for a long period of time. Right. That's my only thing. But for this particular issue, anything that we can do to lessen the exposures and impact, I'm all for. Thank you.
Councilor Marquetti?
So if it's okay, I'd like to make a motion that we have remote participation at subcommittees only.
I'll second that.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. Councilor Adams?
Thank you. Thank you. I agree with that motion, but I will ask this, we talked about the smaller chambers and stuff like that. Would we recommend that all boards, committees
I would,
include that, except for the town council meetings?
Right.
and school committee, if the school committee wishes to vote, to come up here. They're a body too, they hold regular, that's once a month, but.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So a friendly amendment to that amendment?
That's fine.
Is that
Counselor Steves.
Yeah, just a quick question. How would we feel about any board who wants to meet up here? Because some of the others may want to, if they would rather meet in person, they just can't meet in one of the other. Regs have it says like they can't meet in one of the other rooms in person. They have any board that wants to meet in person has to meet up here. The most of them probably won't want to, and there may be conflicts of scheduling for this room, so they may not be able to. But just as an option.
Mr. Chairman.
Counselor Marquetti.
I think the point of the motion is to allow it. I mean, we're not forcing anybody to do it, but if they want to do remote, they should be able to do remote. I think that's what the point of it is, I think. Unless you want to, that's fine forcing it too. I don't have a problem.
Counselor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would rather mandate it. That way there is no confusion on where to meet, when to meet, all that kind of stuff. But I would caveat off that amendment to the amendment to reevaluate that at the end of this month.
Thank you. That was going to be I was going to raise that as well, so.
Okay.
And we can possibly at the next town council meeting at the end of the month.
That would be the 24th. Mary, can we have the amendment, the motion?
Okay. Vote to have remote participation for subcommittee and boards and committee meetings. I need a better wording of it, because I know you added the friendly amendment to reevaluate at the end of January and not to include the council, but I don't know if you want that part.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think it would be vote that all meetings to be held in the town hall will be as follows. Town council, full town council will be in chambers. Any and all subcommittee meetings, boards and commissions of the town will do remote participation until January 24th.
Where it'll be reevaluated.
Oh, yeah, and I had to add to throw something else, but I do believe there's some other meetings already scheduled for this week. I'll check real quick.
Yeah,
So it may be a from and to date.
right. To be effective January 10th.
Okay.
To be effective January 10th for a 2-week period, which would be, 2 weeks would put you to January 24th. I know I probably confused you even more, but
No, I think I have it. I think I'll just play with the wording. But we have basically vote that all meetings be held in the town hall as follows, or well, you said that, but I think we can reword it. Vote that all meetings be held as follows. Town council.
and school committee.
Town council and school committee will be held in the chambers. Any and all subcommittee and board meetings will do remote participation effective January 10th until it is reevaluated at the 1/24 meeting,
Sounds good.
basically.
Yep.
Okay.
That would give a 2-week pause, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think by that time, we would, the state and the town would see what the numbers are doing, or whether the peak has truly peaked and it's going back down, or it continues to peak.
Counselor Dow? You're all set? Please. Please identify yourself for the record.
Pam LaDuke, just so I understand this, and I'm asking this question as a member of the Southbridge Retirement Board. So the council, with this vote, will require that we meet remotely, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, and just a question I had, or a comment actually, was my understanding of the most recent emergency provisions that were put into place by the governor to extend the original emergency provisions of the suspension of some sections of the open meeting law. Your boards and commissions and committees all had the ability to meet remotely without a vote of this council.
At the moment,
There's no authorization because that requirement under the open meeting law was suspended back in March of 2020 originally, and it was extended through April of '22.
Right.
So I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but the council, that didn't require a vote of town council for other boards and committees to meet remotely.
So,
Thank you, Counselor Adams.
Well, it's a very good point. Yeah, we were aware of the April, but we did make a motion, I think it was at the last town council meeting, to hold all meetings, subcommittees and stuff like that face-to-face. So there was a motion already on the table, which was it lost. It lost that night for subcommittees. And I think that's why we're trying to address it, to clear it up.
Council-related, I guess, but other boards and committees, you know, like if the retirement board or the board of health
Right.
wants to meet remotely, they could have done so.
They have been.
without the additional-
Absolutely. Thank you.
Councilor Jovan?
Yeah, I think this is just to clarify. All those boards and commissions had the ability to do remote meetings and have been throughout the period of time. I think this is more to say that during the next 2 weeks, there will be no in-person meetings with the exception of full town council in any school committee, full school committee meeting in council chambers.
Yep.
Everything else, so essentially we're closing the town hall to any meetings at night for the next 2 weeks to limit how many people come in and out of this building and the exposure in small community rooms to other individuals. I think that's the point of it. And they've always had the ability to do remote outside of us.
Okay. Councilor
you.
Dow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, they was doing it, like, the health, Board of Health was doing it remotely, so nobody stopped them. So that one, I think, like, Councilor Jovan said, to give the order to stop completely coming in here. They can do it remotely, continue doing it remotely. Thank you.
Councilor Steves?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate kind of what you just said, that several of the boards have been doing it. A lot of them are meeting in person now. And so this will affect them. And I wanted to point out that at the moment, there's only a couple that are posted on the town website. One of them is traffic commission at the police station. Would those be affected? Because it's not town hall. Do we want them to meet in person, or do we want them to meet remotely?
That they were board or commission in town?
The traffic commission, yeah.
Then they follow the rules of everyone else.
But the problem is, our motion specifically calls for town hall. That's at the police station.
Well,
And the room over there it's probably not as big as this room, but it's bigger than some of the rooms downstairs. So it's kind of in the middle range somewhere.
Councilor Dow?
Thank you,
throw
Mr.
that
Chair. I think the rule should be on everybody.
I think it should be too. I just want to be consistent.
Because we're trying not to spread the COVID. It's not like who's supposed to, who's not. I think it should be on everybody, except the town council and the school community. Thank you.
Councilor Jovan?
Mr. Chairman, not to prolong this, all we're asking is boards and commissions, town councilors, except for the business that has to be done as an entire board, can we just take a look at what we do for that 2 week period?
Right.
Anything that we can go to full council, go to full council. If you need a subcommittee meeting, just do it remotely for the 2 week period so that we can try to mitigate the COVID cases. That's it. In 2 weeks. That's all we're asking, is 2 weeks. So let's not overcomplicate this, that it's just a pause for 2 weeks.
That's it. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Motion.
I'm sorry?
No, we already had the
Oh.
motion.
All right. All those in favor? No one opposed? Passes unanimously. Very good. Agenda item number 7, review and discuss the results and recommendations of the Charter Review Committee and take any action thereof.
So, this is a motion, right?
There's no motion yet.
There's no motion, sorry. Jumped the gun. Thank you. Do you need help with anything, Pam? Do you need help with anything?
All right. So I have Ms. Clemens here with me this evening, coming to you from sunny Mexico. And unfortunately, Mrs. Tortoise can't be with us this evening. She's feeling under the weather, so we hope that she feels better soon. Did all the counselors have a chance to look at the changes that Yvonne made based on our meeting? And does anyone have any questions with regard to those changes? No? We're good? I know there was some language things that we were talking about, and myself and Denise and Yvonne went back and forth, and we thought we came up with some appropriate language based on our conversation and what the council wanted the interpretation to be. So if there's no questions, I guess we stopped at chapter 11. And if we go by what we were doing before, it looks like the first place there was a change was 11.3.1, second paragraph. Filling of vacancies of elected positions in town boards other than the town council shall be by joint convention with the town council and the remaining members of said board. I guess there was some question as to what that actually meant. So we thought that crossing out of and instead including with, which means together, that would clarify. Good? All right. I guess we're going down to chapter 12, 12.3.3. So section 3 of chapter 12 is in the initiative petition. And we've added in that, oh good, thank you. We've added in that section in red and bolded. Upon presentation of the certified petition to the town council, it shall become the duty of the town council within 30 days of receipt thereof to pass and adopt or reject such bylaw or measure without alteration as to meaning or effect. Should the town council reject the proposed bylaw or measure, the voters of the town within 30 days may petition the town council to submit the question to a vote at the next regular town election, at which the qualified voters of Southbridge shall vote on the question of adopting or rejecting the proposed legislation. Said petition must be signed by qualified voters of the town, equal in number to 5% of the total number of voters registered at the last regular town election. Each copy of the petition shall have attached to it a copy of the proposed legislation. Said petition shall then be filed with the Board of Registrars of Voters for certification. Within 10 days from such filing, the Board of Registrars of Votes shall check each name to be certified and shall certify thereon the number of signatures so checked and shall report the results to the persons filing the petition, the town clerk, and the town council. Are there any questions regarding that section? Concerns?
Councilor Steves.
Yeah, just one quick question. What made you decide to choose the 5% number?
Denise, do you? Is there an understanding? The 5%.
Yes.
I don't remember why we.
So Pam, I have a lag from people, so I can't actually watch and hear what they're saying, just so you know.
Okay.
There's like a really big lag on their part. It's like I'm 2 minutes behind on the program, so just letting you know.
Oddly
Do we
enough, you're
understand
speaking in
why
time now.
It was important for the petition.
The question was regarding the 5%.
Wasn't 5% listed other places, so you used the 5%.
So I guess the issue with this section was that as it was before, or is now, it would require town council to put forth a question to the voters that may not have been in a proper format or something that was even really eligible to be voted upon. This way, the council has the ability to reject, because of course, if something like this is put forth to the council, council can't change it, other than maybe housekeeping things. This allows the council to reject, and then if the proponents feel that strongly that they want it put forth, first of all, it gives them the ability to amend and put in such a form that is eligible to be put on the ballot. That's the first thing. And secondly, if they feel that strongly about it, 5% of the vote is, it gives them motivation to get to, have 5% of the vote in a petition to actually get it on the ballot.
Can I add to that, Pam?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so if you read it in its original form, it's a very simplified original form that ultimately oversteps the elected officials' ability. The council is elected by the people to make certain decisions. If in its simplest form, a petition can come forward and you all think that it's not correct or there's something seriously wrong with it and you say no, it immediately makes you, the elected officials who were elected by the people to begin with, to have to go through a special election. Even if the form, as Pam has said, was incorrect or there was something even illegal about the original petition, it would have to go to the voters without any other input from you, the elected officials, who were elected by the people to make the decisions, not to have special elections every time somebody didn't like or something that was going on and they brought it forward. So this just was a cushion between that ability to force the community into a special election by saying if you really are intent on this or you don't like our decision, then bring it back to the people, bring us the people that are concerned by petition, and we'll then do a special election. But in its original form, it was very easy for people to overstep the elected officials' ability to make decisions that they were elected to make. I guess if that makes sense.
Okay. I mean, I understand the argument. I'm just trying to figure out why you chose the 5% threshold, A, and B. That situation, although it's theoretically could happen, I can't recall it ever happening since I've been on the council. I don't think anybody's ever tried, in many years, has tried to petition to overrule something the council did. It could happen, but it hasn't. So maybe an issue that we don't even need to worry about too much.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. I'd rather be proactive than reactive.
All set. All set. Councilor Marquetti, then Councilor Jolet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. So the way I'm reading it now is that after they present a certified petition to the town council, and if the town council rejects it, then they have to go out and get more signatures to override the town council. That's what this is saying right now. And so they can get the same signatures. They can't present the signatures that they've already gotten to begin with. They have to go out and get a whole new set of signatures in order to, that's the way I'm reading it. That once they present a petition or they petition and present it to the council and the council says no, then they have to go back out and do it all over again? Is that how I'm reading this?
So section 12.3.1 requires not less than 5%. So the threshold is there. It can be the same 5%.
But they have to
It
do
doesn't matter
again.
if you're qualified, if you're a voter qualified, to vote in Southbridge, then the Board of Registrars is going to certify that, yes, you are eligible to sign.
Right, but if the council rejects that, the petitioners have to go back out once again and get an additional 5%. This could be the same people,
Yes.
but they got to do it all over again.
Correct.
So, believe me, I have done these type of things, and it's not easy to get 5% people to sign a petition. And the way it's always been, if you present a petition and the council rejects it, it has to automatically go to the to the residents for a vote, which to me sounds fair, because you went out, you got a lot of people, we're talking 700 people to sign a petition. It should go to the people for a vote. To make them do that twice, to me, is unreasonable. It's not fair, really.
Again, our thought, I think Mr. Marquetti was, again, what if something comes forth before the council, as Denise said, and it's something that isn't eligible really to be voted on, or it's not in the right, the proper format, or something like that. This gives them the ability, council rejects it because they're aware of that and they know that, and it gives the proponent the ability to go back and fix what is lacking in the original petition. Gives them another bite of the apple. I'm sorry, Denise?
If I could continue.
And to give council time to explain to the public why they voted no, not just, oh, we voted no, so now it goes to a special election. Wait a minute, we voted no, and let's have some discussion about it. If you really want it back, you know, make it right, come back.
If I could continue.
Councilor Marquetti.
Just one more thing. I would think that if something could not go to the residents for a vote, that would be something that the town clerk would nip in the bud before you could even take it out. She would say to you, this is something that you could not put on the ballot. Before anybody even went out and spent all that time trying to collect 700 signatures, that would be something the town clerk would tell them, you can't do it? Wouldn't that be the best way to handle that?
So again, to Councilor Steve's point where it hasn't happened yet, we, of course, are blessed with a very capable town clerk at this time. Maddie's going to retire someday. We've been blessed with, you know, I had the fortune to work with Mrs. Baldiga and Mrs. Lenti when I worked here. All very capable and, you know, great town clerks. But who says that'll happen again? And again, that's an elected position. So we won't get into opinions on that, but you could end up with someone who is not as savvy in those types of things, and they won't know whether the petition is in a format, a legal format, that it can go to the voters or not.
Well,
So again, being
it's right here in
proactive.
the charter, right, what can and cannot go. Ineligible measures is 12.2.1, correct? All right.
I'm just trying to explain what, you know, our discussion on this and why we chose to do this.
All right.
Again, it's ultimately up to council what you would like to do.
We can add a lot.
Councilor Jovet.
Thank you, through you. Councilman Marquetti, get ready. I actually agree with you.
Apocalypse, I think.
Yeah, I understand the intent about what you're trying to do, but you're making a group that wishes to put a whatever referendum, petition, bylaw in place, do a lot of work. So I think you have to have some faith in the electorate and the council and the balance about if somebody really wanted to put a bylaw through, you know, initially it would come up through that body to say, hey, I have a proposal for a bylaw. And they go to council and say, hey, I would like to have this bylaw put in. What do you think? Will you as a council take it and work on it? This is really a measure that says, a council totally says, we don't even want to talk about a bylaw. We refuse to talk about it. So it's going to go to the ballot box. And again, all my years, I've never seen that happen. So in order for somebody, so that group that wants to put that bylaw through, they have to do a lot to say, hey, sign this petition to get it to council. And if it's that good of a bylaw, I think the council could take it and work on it. So I just see it as, if they're able to get that 5% to bring it to council, and the council says adamantly no, and it goes to the ballot, you are making a group do it twice to get 5%. Their 5% is to get it to here, and I think you have to have that balance of work with as elected officials, work with whatever group to have a balance of bylaw and explain to that group, well, okay, I understand your intent of your bylaw, maybe you think about this. So I'm not sure if I agree with this one or not. Thank you.
Councilor Adams, then Councilor Steves.
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Councilor Steves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thinking along the same lines, I was wondering if maybe what we want to do then is, because I can understand having a relatively high threshold as a second measure, but I'm thinking that maybe instead of having the 5% the first time around, maybe we set a designated specific number, say 100, 150 signatures or whatever, that you have to be a set number of signatures to bring it to the council, and then if the council rejects it, then you have to go get a whole bunch of signatures to get it on the ballot. But I was also thinking that if we can change the language so that part of the problem with this, I think, is that it does not allow the council to negotiate with the proposer to
Correct.
change the text to make it viable.
Correct.
Because if it's really badly written, it shouldn't go to the ballot. But if the person has a really good idea, then it's just a matter of maybe not having the experience of drafting the text necessary to put something on the ballot. I don't see any reason why the council and maybe the town attorney and the proposer can sit down and say, okay, this is the idea, this is what you're trying to understand, this is what you're trying to accomplish. How do we phrase it in a way that is legal?
Because as it's currently written, Councilor Steves, it does
can't
say
do
that
it.
you need to vote yes or no on the measure without alteration as to meaning or effect. So council's hands are tied.
Exactly, that's my point.
Right.
That's my point.
Correct.
And if we can change it, work with them to get it to be legal phrasing without changing the meaning. You know, as long as it suits what the goal is, the common goal is. And then we either vote on it up here or put it on the ballot, whichever way we decide to do. Maybe that would be the way to solve the problem. It would allow citizens to have an easier path to having the say in this kind of process, which, as I mentioned earlier, and Jack mentioned too, and it has never actually, and it doesn't actually happen very often, but it could theoretically happen. And some of the other towns that I've covered as a reporter have much lower thresholds to get things on the ballot than we do.
Right.
That 5% is a pretty stringent threshold. So what would you guys think about setting it as the first session, which would be 1231, and changing that from 5% to, say, a designated number, say 100 or 200 signatures, which is less than 5%, and then make the 5% be the criteria under 1233 after we have had a chance to work with it. And if we figure it's not viable to do, but they still really want to try to do it, that's the public's right to do. You know, I mean, unfortunately, there's some badly written laws out there. There always have been. And some of them are written by legislators. So,
Mr. Chairman? Right here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Marquetti.
For myself, I think I would just as soon leave it alone, leave that section alone. It's worked well for many, many years. I don't see any reason to change it at this time. Thank you.
Councilor Adams.
I think I understand where Councilor Stevens is coming from, but then you start negotiating. Hopefully, common sense prevails and trying to meet the same intent of what the voters had brought forward to us.
right.
But then you basically saying this one person or these two people that will speak that night or that afternoon is representing all of those individuals. So then you start negotiating just that one or two people when you had, 700 signees, and then with their intent based on that one petition. So I'd be worried that that petition gets scrambled a little bit, where the
It could.
intent is no longer there.
It could.
We can say common sense prevails, but we've also seen that not prevail as well. So I'm with Councilor Marquetti. I would leave it alone right where it's at.
I'd rather strike it all out and just leave it as is, The original.
The original say. Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Can I just add something? Hi, Denise. Maureen Doyle, 771 Lebanon Hill. You're talking about elected, and I apologize, I haven't read this, so I don't know if it's in there. I hope you're going to put appointed in too, because we have had a huge problem with an appointed person to the Conservation Commission who would not get off the board for whatever reason, but she would not show up, really screwed up quorum for probably a year or two.
This
And
is
so
about
I hope
initiative
that
petition.
appointed is in there as well.
This is about initiative petition.
This is about initiative.
What?
This is about initiative petition, about the number of signatures necessary to put a petition on the
Okay,
ballot.
well,
It has
just
nothing- it has nothing to do
somewhere,
with it has nothing to do
I
with
don't know.
individuals on boards.
just somewhere. Make sure you get appointed in there, because it was the last town manager, and he wouldn't do anything about
Yeah.
removing a person, and that needs to be in there too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's the sentiment of the council that
Wait, Could
1233 remain the same,
I respond to Maureen's?
The original.
the original.
Denise is trying to say something.
I think she's all set. We're going to,
Oh, I just wanted to tell her that we did put that in.
Yeah,
The
we-
town manager
we did address it.
has the right to bring forward and to have the council vote to remove a person like that from a board or committee.
Right.
So,
That's been in there for a long time. It just wasn't invoked.
All right, so we're going to leave that as is.
Leave 1233
All
as
right.
it was previously written.
Okay. So 1241, we just changed office and offices to agency and agencies. On to,
Could I just ask a question? Well, if I could, I'm sorry. So how are you defining an agency within a town? What is an agency within the town?
departments.
Is that an agency? I mean, I'm just wondering what I'm looking for because I'm wondering if you say, okay, we're going to create, what is an agency under town? I'm not trying to be funny here, I've never heard the term agency within a town.
So I guess office sounds a little too restrictive, and like it is just an office versus an entire agency, which is an entire department.
of the town.
Yeah, of the town, correct.
And it can refer to group, department, it can refer to many things. Agency can be more than one.
I'm sorry, I can't hear her. What did she say?
Denise,
What did she say?
repeat what you said.
So is it, the agency can refer to more than one type of scenario, whereas an office is office. And an agency could be an agency of the town, so that could refer to an entire group, department, a committee, the agency of the town, if you look up the definition of agency. And I think it was consistent with earlier language is why we changed it too. As we went through, we saw department again, and we said, oh, that should be agency, or office rather, sorry. But, let's see, and we can look it up in August if we wanted to ask for sure, let's see.
Okay.
In your minutes, it states that the word agency was used instead of office because there was a conflict with the previous section of the charter.
Sections, yeah, that's what Denise just said.
That was a meeting on August 31st, 2021.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry,
Just a quick
Counselor.
observation. If that's the case, then we probably should put for the sake of our charter, a definition of the term agency under section 5. There is none. It starts with bylaw.
Add that as a definition.
We probably should, yeah. 'Cause there's nothing in there.
I would concur with that, because I'd like to see what are we defining as an agency?
That makes sense.
So there's no interpretation later on, well, I believe, a town manager could say, I believe that's an agency. We say, no, that's not an agency. Well, so it's defined in the charter, so thank you, Councilor Steve.
Yeah, because if you look, synonyms, office and agency are the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, can do that.
It said there's a paragraph in the minutes of the August 31st meeting.
Yes, Chairman Daniel just read it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't hear him.
So they're suggesting that we add definition of agency in the definitions.
Yeah, section 5.
Okay,
Section 1.
all right.
I think it's a good idea, yeah, I mean, why not?
Yep. All right, section 5. This charter may be revised or amended with the provisions of Home Rule amendments, Article 89 to the Massachusetts Constitution and the Home Rule Procedures Act, General Laws, Chapter 43B.
It's getting clarifying the title.
Right, clarifying. And these are the proper terms, these are the proper titles of, and we added 89 because I had to stop for about 5 minutes to figure out what that meant, so, LXXX. And then, of course, we referenced GL Chapter 43B for the Home Rule Procedures Act. 12.5.2, the chairperson of the town council shall appoint a charter review committee consisting of 5 members every 5 years. The committee shall report its recommendations to the town council within 1 year from the date of its appointment, unless extended by a majority vote of the town council. Those changes okay? Okay.
Good.
Counselor?
So what, and this is just a point of clarification, at what point does the 5-year mark start? Is it from adoption of, so say we send this out and it gets reviewed, it goes to the legislature, then it has to go on a ballot. When does that 5-year clock start? Is it 5 years from your term, or is it 5 years from the term of any adoption? I'm just thinking your thoughts on that. I mean,
How did we do it this time? Do you know?
It's always been a little fluid.
yeah, I think it's been fluid, so it's just, you know,
Oh.
what, you know, I think we went from I think I went with, when we were looking at this, was 5 years from the date of the last review.
So maybe we should include that in that section?
That would make sense, yeah.
5 years shall be determined from the appointment of the previous,
So
Charter
I'm
Review
just thinking, you were appointed a year ago now, so you're already a year in.
right,
By the time it goes to the legislature, so you're talking a year and a half, it gets printed, now you're talking 3 years that it's in effect. So I'm just looking for future councils, how do we determine what that date is?
so how does the council feel about that? From the date of adoption, or the date of the election, of the adoption of the amendments?
Yeah, of amendments.
I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah,
That would make sense,
Yeah.
I would think, yeah.
so we'll add that in here.
Yeah.
So that it isn't fluid. Okay, we're going to add that in here.
And I would just be careful about, I wouldn't phrase it as adoption, because it's potential the voters could reject all of the amendments.
So just a local election.
So
The-
from
right,
the
the
date
vote-
of the
the
local
vote at
election on
right.
which these changes are proposed, on which these
election,
changes are
yes.
voted. Yes.
Okay.
From amended date or something.
From the date of the election where the amendments
It's on the ballot.
are considered, right?
Yeah, are considered on the ballot.
Okay. 12.5.3, in every year following the issuance of a report by a charter review committee, the chairperson of the town council shall appoint a bylaw review committee consisting of 5 members. The committee shall report its recommendations to the town council within 1 year from the date of its appointment, unless extended by a majority vote of the town council. So do we want to do the same thing there?
Mr. Chairman? I would think that, yeah, that has to be clarified, because, okay, they submit a report, but say nothing was acted upon.
Right.
Is there, although you may want to review your bylaws every 5 years anyway, to make sure that there's no conflicts that have come up or changes in law and stuff, so,
The bylaw doesn't have to go to election.
Right.
yeah, so that is the question, because you want it to be on the same cycle, so you would want evidently that, okay, these bylaws go, they're approved, now that bylaw committee has a year to review because say a charter amendment doesn't pass.
Right.
They've been wasting it by the time you get it, because your report technically has been submitted now, right? So if it doesn't get acted on until the June election, that's 6 months, but, okay, if you're supposed to do the bylaw, then how does that work, so?
So it should be, rather than in the year following the issuance of a report by a charter review committee,
Following the
in the
year.
year following the election?
Well, I think we
At
can leave
which-
that, I think that we can leave that then because, no, that makes sense because a year, it should go through the ballot, so I guess we would leave that alone. Because it should have gone through the natural progression from the report. So,
It should have.
it should have, so I don't think we'll change that.
So the
Because-
council chairman should probably wait till after that election, though.
Right, and the year following.
Yep.
So it's the year following, so technically, your report just came out, so it's the year following, so.
In the year following any
Yeah.
amendments to the charter.
So our report came out 21.
Right.
Hopefully, this will pass through the legislature rather quickly and be able to be on the June
Right,
ballot, and then, okay.
so, yeah.
And then after the election in '22, the chairman should establish a bylaw review
Bylaw
committee.
review,
Okay.
Do you want to clarify it to be calendar year or fiscal year?
I would just leave it. Because I think Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Certainly.
I don't want to just yell. I think it would give flexibility. It's the year following, so depending on whenever that vote comes, it's whatever the vote is, and have some flexibility, and then they have time to vote that. And at that point, you would know what was passed, if anything was passed or not passed, and then you can still review the bylaws to make sure that they fall. So I would just leave it.
Yeah, depending on the timing, I mean, even if it takes forever with the legislature, and even if you have a special election, it should be in the year following anyway.
Yeah.
I hope so, yeah.
All right.
So just sorry, Mr. Chair.
Certainly,
Just
Counselor.
just to clarify, a year after the charter, after the election,
No, after the Charter Review Committee's report is
to
issued.
the report, okay, and then a year after that. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Counselor.
This is where I think where it says in every year following the issuance. Is that every year they have to do it? Mr. Town Manager, in legal sense, in every year following the issuance, does that mean every year after they give that report? Or was the intent, and was the intent in the year following
year
the issuance
following.
of that charter review, because if you read that language, does in every year following that, does that mean every year you have to appoint a bylaw review committee? Or is it?
I sat on the, through you, Mr. Chairman, I sat on the Charter Review Commission in my town. I think we issued one report after the fact, and I don't know that we did anything every year after that.
Right. So I think that was my crux of my question. In every year following, what,
So should we replace every with the?
Yes.
in the year following?
In the year following. All right. So we're going to replace every with the,
Right, does that make sense?
in the year
Yeah.
following. Okay.
Right. To me, that every had a perpetuity signal to it.
Yes. Okay. All right. Section 8, counting of days. 12.8.1, in counting days under this charter, every calendar day shall be counted, including Sundays and all holidays, unless otherwise specified.
Specified by whom? By state
All
law?
set?
Specified by whom? By state law, by elsewhere in the charter, by council vote, by,
I think it's unless otherwise specified within this document. If within, was that it, Denise? Within the document, if it
Yes.
says otherwise,
Yes.
then that's
yes,
the case.
absolutely.
Under the charter.
Right,
yeah, then I would
Just like with
clarify,
the
otherwise
vote-
specified
the
in the
vote
charter, in this
situation.
charter.
right.
And it says, under this charter, in counting days under this charter, unless otherwise specified.
Right, so
Specific to the charter.
Counselor Steves was just asking otherwise specified by whom, but it's not whom, it's the document itself.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. On to Chapter 13. Let's see, Section 2, disposition of certain special acts. 13.2.1, Chapter 790 of the Acts of December 20th, 1975, titled, "An Act Clarifying the Charter of the Town of Southbridge," is repealed and shall no longer apply to the Town of Southbridge. So again, we're just clarifying where, more detail. It used to say Chapter 790 of, I think it said of the 1975
Yeah,
charter.
yes.
Yeah, it's back in
So,
And so it was very vague.
Right.
And we thought it was important to know there was an actual date involved with when that was disposed of.
correct.
And we looked it up and we found it.
13.3.1, except as otherwise provided in this charter, all town offices.
You see that you flipped it. You took the,
Okay, so that's, no, that's actually wrong. That should say officers.
Okay, yeah, that makes
That
sense.
should say officers, not offices. So sorry, that's a typo there. Officers shall continue to perform their duties until re-elected or until successors to their respective positions are duly appointed or elected and qualified, or until their duties have been transferred and assumed by another officer.
Okay.
So that should say officers, being an elected
We still missed
officer.
one, dang it.
Yeah. We've
Tried.
looked at this so many times. Okay. So on Section 7, we crossed that section out because it's no longer valid.
Charters.
It doesn't, that transitional provision doesn't mean anything anymore. So we just
That was
took,
from original.
right, so we just took it out.
Right.
And then 13.7.3, upon adoption of this charter, the second paragraph, within 3 months after the adoption of this charter, the town council shall appoint a bylaw review committee to review the town bylaws to ensure they are in compliance with the charter. Said committee shall report its recommendations to the town council within 6 months following their appointment. The committee may, and again, this is under transitional provisions. The committee may, in its discretion and subject to appropriation of sufficient funds by the town council, engage a legal consultant. And again, just as previously in the charter with the town administrator search committee, that committee doesn't dictate to the council that they shall appropriate money for them to engage a consultant. It's up to the town council. You're the appropriating body, not, they don't dictate that to you. And that is it. We're done.
Did they need to revisit any of the other areas, or did they,
Yeah, I did ask them if they had any questions to the changes that we had made based on our last meeting, and there was none.
I just
So
want, oh, go ahead.
we can make those changes and that we just talked about to the document. All right?
I just want to say you did a phenomenal job. It's, the amount of work and effort put in by the committee, just the logistics of putting this binder together with all the meeting minutes from the various meetings that you've held, make this a very clear document, and this is definitely something to keep in the library, as it were, so that there's, for the next 10 years, there's going to be a Bible to go by, and will solve a lot of problems in terms of questions that people have had in the past with the charter. Through no fault of previous charter committees, it's nice to really dig down and do a good spring cleaning, as it were, every once in a while. And you folks were great. I think this is really a wonderful document. And we'll be moving forward with the proper changes, with the proper legalistic items that we need to get to. We'll be moving forward with that in short order.
And I think I can speak for Denise and I and Of course, Yvonne is leaving us. Lucky her, and going south. But we look forward to actually working with the bylaw committee that will be appointed, and to make sure that the bylaws and the charter, there aren't any, make sure that they meld together. There are a lot of contradictions right now, so I know that and I'm sure Denise, would look forward to working closely with them to making sure that they meld.
Right.
They gel together.
Yeah.
Councilor Adams.
It's been a real honor and pleasure, as I said in the past, to be able to participate in this. And to actually, I think for me, having been a counselor, for you, Pam, too, I'm sure, but knowing that the council dug down completely in the charter from page 1 to chapter 14 or whatever, 13, it actually is very heartwarming. I don't know what you call it. It's just something that's really good. I'm glad it gave us all an opportunity to review like this.
Right.
Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank, the chair have already expressed his thanks to all of you, but the fact that you volunteered your time, working full-time and trying to figure out your own life on at your own jobs, and then coming here at night and spending sometimes 3 hours having a hard discussion about the word "the" and "shall" and "should" and "may" and "can" and "will" and all that kind of stuff it's really appreciated, and I wish more people would step up like what you guys have done this past year. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I agree.
All set? Okay. Councilor Steves.
Yeah, actually, I do have something I happen to notice. I should have mentioned this earlier. But if you jump back to section 10.5, where it phrases public media, I remember we had that discussion the last time we brought that up. And I was just looking at it, and it jumped out to me that any other public media, technically the way that is phrased, it wouldn't allow you to use privately owned media. So I think the intention obviously is media that's accessible to the public. I just don't want to see us get into a situation where we can't publish things because we don't have available media that's technically publicly owned. Although it should be public, but it's not. And that would be 10.5.1 and 10.8.1.
Okay, so that actually, the town council shall publish on the town's website
And in any other media
other-
accessible to the public.
okay.
As determined by
media,
the town council.
And it, as deemed appropriate by town council.
Yeah.
Yep. So you're saying just put media there and not public? Or,
Well, I mean,
Just strike
I would
the
say
word public.
public.
we could do it that way, yeah. I mean, because I think it should be public, but it isn't. So,
so leave
in
public
any other
there?
media as determined by the town council. Yeah, I mean, I think that would make sense.
Okay.
I'm not trying to confuse things, but,
Because we had the conversation about pertinent public media, and that's,
Right.
again, that's subjective, so that's why we had put in there, and it wasn't changed here, but as deemed appropriate by town council,
Right.
so.
Oh, and also under Chapter 7, Section 7-1-2.
That's in 2 places.
Yes,
Maybe we want to phrase it as where it says, the town shall adopt a standard operating policy regarding access and use of a town council. How about just a town attorney, since this chapter is the town attorney?
you know what, that
Just
wasn't changed.
to keep it consistent.
That wasn't changed either, because my notes had that
The
as...
711 says a town attorney. And although they mean the same thing, I'm just thinking consistency.
Okay. So my notes had that after our last discussion, as the town council shall adopt a town council access policy,
Right.
which may be amended from time to time.
So it's not even there.
Is that better?
I
Okay.
was thinking the consistency, because it says town attorney in the chapter. The chapter is chapter 7, town attorney. The first paragraph says, appoint a town attorney.
Yeah, we use the word council.
Yeah, and
Written
then
it down.
7.1-2 says use of a town council, which may
Right.
be amended from time to time. I'm just saying just change it to attorney.
So change it to town council rather than town attorney?
No, town attorney, change the last use of council to
To attorney?
Just because the entire chapter says town attorney, so.
Okay. All right, got it.
Yeah, town attorney.
Yep.
Council Marquetti. Council
I'll
Marquetti and then
defer.
Council Jovan.
I'll defer to
You'll defer? Very good. Council Jovan.
Thank you, Councilman Marquetti. Through you, I'm just wondering, the town shall adopt a stated operating position regarding access and use of legal services, which will be amended from time to time. Because we appoint a town attorney, but then we have other legal counsel that we may,
That's a good way to- that's a good way to do it. Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
Okay, legal services?
right.
All right.
Does that make sense? Because then that's a
That makes sense,
broad,
absolutely.
standard operating procedure for any legal services that anybody may need,
That makes sense.
as opposed to the town attorney.
Yep. We'll change that.
Council Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to know now, going forward, are we going to have some time now to go through this document? Because I really haven't even had a chance to look at the changes that were made. And we're not voting on it tonight, correctly? We're just taking it under advisement, and we will have time to look it over, discuss it some more at a future town council meeting.
That's correct.
All right, thank you. Yep.
Okay, anything else?
I'm good, thank you.
We're all good?
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
All right, so we'll make the changes. We'll get them to the town manager and his staff, and to be distributed to you, so you can have a final look-see over it. All right?
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Next agenda item is adjournment.
So moved.
All those in favor? We are adjourned.